Hello, everyone, and good afternoon. Welcome to the first webinar of 2023 of SYMSON. We still want to wish you a great year, and we hope we kicked off the year with some ambitious pricing goals. And in this first webinar of the year, we would like to tell you everything about what could be the potential value for you to start with a pricing engine. And we do that again completely live. So we are live on LinkedIn and YouTube. So if you want to participate in our poll, that is highly appreciated. We invite you to give your answers in the LinkedIn comments. Yeah, great. I see a lot of people joining. So let's start. We would like to start the first part of the session with an interactive session to give you a little bit more insight in how your current process looks like. And our first question to you is, what resources are you currently using to create your prices? The first answer is to use your ERP. We're currently using your ERP to create your prices. Second, the web shop. Third, Excel. Four, a combination of Excel, business intelligence tooling, your ERP, scraping tools, and ad hoc information from stakeholders. And five, are you already using pricing software and organized input from stakeholders in the organization? So we're really curious. We invite you to type in the chat 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. The answer which is most applicable to your situation. Thanks a lot. I see a lot of answers here. Great. Thanks for participating. I think we can move now to the next poll. You're not done. We still would like to know more of you. How many times are you doing it? So how many times are you changing currently your prices? Is that half a year or yearly? Is that quarterly? Is that monthly, weekly, or even daily? Please type in the chat the answer which is most applicable for your situation. A, B, C, D, or E. Thanks for answering. And the last question we have for you is, how long does it take for you to do the price change? Is that less than an hour, 1 to 5 hours, 5 to 20 hours, 4, do you even have a full-time employee managing the prices, or 5, do you have more than one employee managing the prices? The last question for now. And thanks for participating. I see a lot of different answers here in the poll, and the reason why we ask you these questions is to give you a little bit more insight in what could be the value of a pricing engine. Is it already automated, and yeah, how fast are you currently updating your prices? What you see here is this matrix. We have on the x-axis the time investment, and on the vertical axis the frequency. And the business case of starting with a pricing engine could be based upon how much time you invest in it and how frequent you change your prices. So if you spend a lot of time in updating your prices, for example, 5 hours a week, or even more, and you have these price changes weekly, then we believe there could be a lot of value in starting with a price engine. Of course, there are more factors part of the business case. But also, if you have a little bit of a low time investment, for example, 1 hour a day, but if you have a high frequency that you're changing your prices every day, there could still be a lot of value in starting with a price engine. So of course, there are also financial reasons to start with a pricing engine, but these two aspects could be a start of deciding, is it a good business case to start with a price engine. So once again, thanks for participating in this poll, and I also would like to emphasize that there's no good or wrong in answering, because you should be updating the price as often as the market requires. There are markets which are more dynamic, which are more competitive, and also you as a company should be more dynamic to change your prices. And there are markets which are less dynamic, so you don't have to change them very often. Speaking today, my name is Arjen Oosthoek, co-founder of SYMSON, and later in this presentation I will give the floor to Vincent Geling, director of SYMSON. And we prepared an agenda for this 45 minutes. We would like to kick off this webinar with the chapter of why you are missing growth potential. So we'd like to explain how a lot of prices are managed today. In the second part of the webinar, Vincent will give you a lot of information about the potential value of a pricing engine. The third topic of today is how does your current pricing look like? And also in this part, we have some interactive polls. And the fourth part, we will tell you everything about how technology can upgrade your pricing. So what could be the impact of software? What could be the impact of machine learning and AI in your pricing nowadays? And in the last topic, we explain, or we would like to answer the questions you have. So if you have any burning questions, you can ask them in the meantime in the chat. But in the end of the webinar, we will go to them to answer them. So the title of this webinar was Why You're Missing Potential with a markup pricing and Excel-based pricing. And in the market right now, we see that a lot of companies are still using that. And if you're using your ERP or if you're using Excels and spreadsheets, these tools are very static, which means that if your prices or your cost prices don't change, a lot of these prices stay the same over a certain period. But we believe in the current market circumstances with high inflation, a lot of pressure on your margins, but also with factors like your competitive intensity, with factors like seasonality or price sensitivity. It's really hard to stay your prices at the same level because you want to answer the different kind of factors and you want to respond on these factors, and you also want to respond on the different kind of consumer demand that's depending on these macro factors. So that's why I believe these static tools, such as ESP tools and Excel tools, are not enough nowadays to beat the competition. What you see here on this slide is it's visualized how a current process could look like in an ERP. So the starting point here could be that you have for a certain product a base price of €1,000, and these products has 4 variants, and each variant could have a different markup or markdown. And then you come to a list price, and this list price is still 1,000 here in this example. But then we go to the customer dimension, and the customer dimension, especially B2B companies, could have different customer segments, and the more you purchase, the more discount you get. So here, if you're a big customer, you get 7% discount on the list price. So you come to a price of €902. So this is actually the standard process of coming from a base price to a net price, but it also has certain limitations for the static process. So you cannot include a lot of situations, for example, your current stock level or the competition. But it's also really hard to start optimizing here on your margin. And it's also really hard to integrate the customer behavior into this process. And so there is where the value of a pricing engine comes in. And in the next slide, we give you there the visualization. So what you see here, it's visualized, what could be the impact if you start using a pricing engine. You can make your prices more dynamic. So you can depend your prices upon the market factors. So if you have a good overview of what could be the price influences of your organization, you can include them in a pricing engine to make your pricing more dynamic and to meet the customer demand. So in the next slide, you see this visualized. Again, we have the 2 dimensions, which were also explained during the ERP process. You start with the product and then you go to the customer. But on the right side, you see that you have more situations. So you can add, for example, the season. If you have 4 seasons a year and you see that your customers could be sensitive for each season, or your product is sensitive for each season. You can add specific markdowns and markups for each season. You can also add your competition level for each specific product. You can add your inventory level for each specific product, or you can also add price sensitivity. These are some examples of situations you can add, but Vincent will explain more situations you can include in a pricing engine to make your pricing more dynamic. So right now I'll give the floor to my colleague Vincent.
Thanks, Arjan, for this introduction. Yes, what we see here is it's a visualization in some words in what the difference is between traditional pricing and a new way of pricing. And as we can see on the left side on this one, where all the red dots are with the X in the middle, we see that a lot of these elements are based on less dynamic positioning and also less scientific approaches of setting prices. So as what we see here is gut feeling, single price strategies, and that you don't have fast adjustments, but slow adjustments, that you have to do some manual work in making your reports, and that there's a static learning and mainly focused on the past and also the current situation just to prevent errors. And if we look towards more the future oriented way of pricing, then we see that we just want to make data driven decisions, right? So it has to be fact based, and if there's a possibility to take iterations in the data that come in and learn out of those data cycles, then that's even better to position your company best towards the future. Furthermore, we see that some products can make use of multiple price strategies. So some products you will sell in some months because they have seasonality. For instance, products that you sell well in the summer, you want to apply an elasticity strategy, for instance, on your products in the summer months. So that means in, for instance, April, May, June, July, August, and September, for instance, that you have some heats in a more warmer weather, and in the other months you just want to fall back, maybe on a competitor strategy or even back to basics, just a cost-based plus, and making sure that you make some sales on lower margins. Furthermore, we see other different ways in the new pricing, so that you at least can focus on the future, that you have a more hyper-learning approach, but also that you can iterate on smart learnings that you get out of the sales data that you collect out of the market. So having said that, in the next sheet, we see what is the capability of a pricing engine, right? So what you see here is like a tree loop visualization in how a pricing engine, at least how we look at it, should function. So we have some market standard features, and that is, I think, something everyone can relate to. So it means that you can do easily market pricing on categories that you have within your organization, but also that you can determine margin strategies based on the cost price, and that assigned also to different categories that you are selling within the company. Furthermore, you maybe want to work just based on certain list prices, or you want to build, of course, different customer groups or segmentations, just to make sure that you can build different price lists that really correspond with the markets and the different customer groups that you want to address. Of course, every company sometimes works with a way of discounting or maybe a promo price. So these are elements that should be in as well, of course. And finally, things that we often see coming into the system are recommended retail prices, RRPs, and of course also list prices based on the B2B pricing settings. So these are elements that we see in any as a basic of a pricing engine. And in that philosophy, you want to include some extra, more exclusive features that you, of course, want to apply on top of these basic features. So starting a pricing engine is then also easy, right? So you always start with these basic elements, and then once those are in place, then you can also take the next step. And I think that's also the beauty of installing a price engine within an organization. But if we then look more closely to exclusive features, what we then can mostly say is that you can make a diversified price strategy. So for instance, on this one, we see that what we like to include is, for instance, stock-based pricing, right? So we are dealing with stock levels, and at which stock levels we want to push prices, and maybe at certain stock levels we want to lower prices. So this is for us important, just to make sure that you can manage your inventory pretty well. Furthermore, if you are active in multiple countries or in certain regions, or you are selling on different marketplaces, that is something you want to apply as well. Of course, you can have customer segmentation, but you can also build segmentations within countries, but also across different marketplaces. So these are also elements that a pricing engine could deliver to you. Furthermore, of course, key value item strategies and segmentation in that would be lovely to apply as well. And finally, the one that we want to write under the exclusive feature is, of course, that you can apply smart roundings in products. So if you are already dealing in, for instance, more competitive market, but also make the price look more attractive than the other prices in the market, can be a benefit in increasing your sales. So if you have these different levels in place, then we can even take it another step further. And here we are already moving towards the third loop in this visualization. And this is, how do we ensure certain objectives within our company? So how do we work with objectives? Yes, and three different elements that can be taken into account here is, for instance, that you can make agreements within a pricing system. How much percentage can a price change on each iteration that it's making? So does the market accept only a 5% change, or maybe they accept a 10% change? So these are really domain-driven elements that really the seller in that domain probably knows what is accepted by the buyer of the products. Furthermore, you want to have maybe rules on keeping a minimal level of your profit. So set a margin level within the system, execute all the strategies, but always make sure that you don't cross that minimum margin level. And finally, of course, maybe you want to do just some kind of price experimentation, but yeah, you do want to give it some boundaries. So what you can set is, for instance, a lower and an upper bound, and make sure that the system always makes an experiment between those two price levels. And this is, in a quick overview, what we see as a capability and a growth strategy that a company could have within a pricing system, making use of all different features that should, in our opinion, be in a pricing system. So the features that you are going to utilize, of course, to bring your pricing to the next level are then kind of summarized in the 6 elements that you see here. So if you look at the feature price setting, is that the strategies can be that you can have a competitor strategy, so utilize the data of your competitors to make sure that you can position yourself best in the market. Furthermore, you want to maybe make use of an elasticity algorithm to optimize your products, for instance, for margin, or even for revenue if you want to gain, for instance, more market share. Furthermore, a capability and a feature could be that you can optimize price through the AI. So that means that the models that are built in the pricing engine can be trained with each cycle of data, and that we can measure, for instance, performance on a certain economical trend. So for instance, if we measure 10 days, then if the 11th day of sales is coming in, then the first day is leaving the model. And in this way, the model becomes more dynamic, and every day of sales has an influence on setting those prices. And that really helps to train the model. And of course, there's where AI comes in as well. And that's also contributing to the fourth block that you see here, the dynamic pricing, but then real time. Of course, if you can consume the data of today, then you are really close to market behavior, and then you can really adjust your organization for the data that comes in. Even if we have like very surprising events that we didn't aware of that they could occur. So, for instance, during Corona, then it's nice to have really in-depth insights in what is the daily ops and what is going on there, to make sure that you can adjust your strategies on time. Other tools that you can use from a more management perspective, of course, is that you can kind of utilize your data set to build scenarios towards the future. So what is happening with my sales and my margins if I change prices 5% in a free interpretation, for instance, from the model perspective, with 5% to the upside, 5% to the downside, and then see what the ideal price point would be, and see if you want to finally take that A/B test in a real scenario towards the market, and to see if you can leverage that outcome. And the other thing is, of course, that because you measure a lot of different statistics in a pricing engine, and you are also working with a lot of data, that you use the data to manipulate it and get insights in how you can use it to reposition or get some discoveries within your own organization, or within new markets, or product developments, just to make sure that you can find a new product fit in the market, or even a nice spot for your prices. So if you summarize that a bit, so what would be the benefits of using a pricing engine? First of all, you can beat KPIs, of course, to make smarter prices and combine price strategies. we are saving a lot of work, at least manual work, of course, by automating a price process. So we can dive into percentages a bit later. Furthermore, we also see, of course, a huge reduction in manual errors. So if you are still using Excel or other spreadsheet solutions, what we see is that sometimes macros get lost in the organization, or the data in these sheets are quite static, so that doesn't contribute in the reducing of the errors. Furthermore, of course, there's an possibility to prepare yourself optimization, so already look more ahead into the future, and set things up, and make sure that you have a great outlook on that. You can stay in control by knowledge assurance. So if you build price strategies within a pricing engine, that really helps you to store knowledge about price strategies within the system. So if someone leaves the organization, those strategies will still be in the system, and someone can analyze them and see how categories were combined to that specific strategy. And because they're dynamic, if something changes, they will always keep up running. But it also is easy to transfer that knowledge to the next person in line. And finally, of course, we start using historical data to get insights, and also use that historical data to compare, for instance, similar periods in time, to get some expectations into what we can expect from the market and price settings, and also the demand side of the market. So now I hear always people thinking about, oh, that's a very nice story, and I see a nice a tool, but how do we implement it in our organization? And this is the focus that we have ourselves. But I think in general, this is an approach that is taken much more often. So what organizations want to achieve in delivering such a services, that they can operate within a MACH architecture. So MACH stands for microservice, cloud native, API first, and headless. And it means as much that it is a serving component in your architecture that can easily be plugged in, but also be easily removed if you don't want to use it anymore. And if we visualize that in a different picture or visualization, then I can show you that on the next page. And here we see how that is executed. So in the bottom line, you see different elements, what could be all types of applications, of course. On the left side, you see consumers, so you can have something like a customer relationship management system. You can have like an order system in place. You can have also a system in place that does your product organization and uses all the snippets of content that you want to use into presenting your products. And of course, you can have a tool for pricing. And all these different tools that you have in the organization communicate with an API layer towards the presentation that you have on the front end, and there where you interact with your potential customers. So that is what these elements do. So actually these consumers that visit your website, for instance, or visit your mobile application to do some transaction, or your social media or marketplaces, whatever you have, they will only see your presentation of the data and, for instance, prices over there. And if you change in the back end, of course, your pricing tool, or you want to switch strategies or whatever, your client on the front end wouldn't notice that you are making use of different toolings in this position. So easy to implement and quickly to use. Yeah, and as said, if we look at the percentages, what a pricing engine can do for you, then we see in terms of automation that 80 to 90% of the manual tasks that are repetitive can be automated. And yeah, that is a great benefit, of course, because the time saved in this matter can be used to think about new strategies, but also set new goals with the organization and move the orientation of price setting towards like a daily ops, or controlling certain errors from happening, that you really move towards like the next step. And that is being more future oriented and focus on strategies and outputs to achieve your KPIs, of course, that you want to set with your company, and achieve some growing goals or other goals that you may have set with the organization. Yeah, because if we look at what a pricing engine can actually execute, so we did some small research into, I think, one of the biggest applier of a pricing engine today, and that is Amazon, of course. They reprice quite often. So as you can see here, there can be more than 3 million price changes on a day. And that's quite a lot, of course. But in this way, they are able to do a lot of hypothesis testing and A/B testing, just to make sure that they measure the right price points within a different customer segmentations, different countries, etc. And it just gives you the idea what kind of possibilities a system could deliver once you are using it at full scale. Yeah, and that's then also the access that you maybe want to have for your organization. So enriching your company with a capability of a pricing engine gives you already quickly the possibilities to make adjustments 1.5 million times a day. So if you are only moving your price positions right in now half a year or maybe a quarter, then with these pricing engines, you are already able to make more movements with your price. Of course, in general, the value is really about the analytical part of it, understanding your domain and the acceptance of price changes. So not every industry can change prices every day or every hour or every minute, to say it in such a way. It really depends on your industry, but having capabilities and being able to adjust your strategies towards market circumstances is for sure a capability that helps you survive in days that it is it's a bit rougher to be an entrepreneur, but it will also help you in greater times to pick up more and quicker the margins that you could earn with your organization. And then we would like to move to the number 3 of this webinar, and that is, how does your pricing process look like? So if we look at the pricing process within small companies, we often see that there is 1 or 2 entrepreneurs. And in the smaller companies, we see that if it's one entrepreneur, it's of course the person who started the company who is responsible for pricing. But we also see that sometimes in these cases, one person is more the creative one, and the other is more about the processes. And then they make these choices together on the elements to decide where price point should be. If we take the next step and we look at the medium-sized companies, we already see that there is an add-on of extra persons who are involved in the pricing strategy. So what we have found in our researches and the experience that we have today is that we see that people of sales, IT, but also someone of the finance, mostly head of finance, and someone who is responsible, for instance, for the e-commerce side of the industry or for the company, is involved in this process. Can also be, of course, a pricing manager or an analyst. And we see that with these 4 stakeholders, we have to think about a pricing setting that could be applied for the organization. Of course, with 4 persons, we already doubled the amount that we had in small companies. So to get everyone in line is already more complex. And finally, of course, we can move towards the bigger enterprises. And here we see that we are dealing with departments and that the process becomes more and more complex. So in this case, it can be multiple stakeholders, more than 4 at least, that take part in these discoveries and discussions to set prices. And every department has their own objectives, of course, to achieve, and also KPIs. So getting everyone in line, making the right decisions, and making sure that the interdepartment objectives are aligned with the pricing objectives. That is one of the biggest challenges to set. And that's why a data position could really help making sure that everyone makes the right decision, or at least that we get alignment in the thoughts of the possibilities that we can achieve. And this is a kind of the visualization of the previous sheets that you have seen. So as you see on the left side, the size of the companies and the elements that we need to take in account increase per level of the organization. So just to elaborate a bit more on it, the elements that we need to measure are, for instance, market conditions. How is your competition doing? How is your cost structure looking like? And I think in general, for instance, with us in our organization, we measure 52 different data points. And these 52 different data points become more complex and entail more data as a company grows to the next stage. So it becomes more complex and extra, maybe exponential, more complex if you start growing as an organization and more people are involved as well. The complexity can reach certain direction that agility in your price setting is really lacking. All right, and now we go to a poll, and my colleague Arjen will take over the poll.
how many people are involved in the pricing process? That's the question we would like to ask you. Is it just you? Option 1. Is it option 2, director and pricing manager? Option 3, between 3 and 5 people, or option 4, even more than 5 people? Option 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We like to ask you to participate again in the LinkedIn comments. If you just drop in the webinar, we are completely live. So if you want to answer one of these polls, please do it in the poll. I see a lot of 3 and 4s. So that's nice. So we have a lot of people that are influencing the pricing process. Okay. Thanks for participating. We go now to the next chapter, is chapter 4, how technology can upgrade your pricing. And how is the pricing developed over decades? So we made the graph actually to also give you a little bit of a timeline how the process is developed over the past decades. I think a few decades ago, the prices were based upon a lot of discussions we had internally. What could be the good price? Also, you had negotiations with customers about what is a good price. And you see over the time, over the decades, we got more tools to develop the pricing process, but also technology enables us to make more calculations. So after a couple of years, we had the rise of the computer and also the rise of the calculator, of course. And in the past 2 decades, we saw the rise of the computer. We saw a lot of software tooling. And nowadays, we are in the phase of AI, machine learning, predictive models. And these are tools which can help you decide what could be a good price, what is a recommendation based upon all the data we collected in the past. So this is an overview of how technology really enables you. And for you as an organization, if you really want to make the difference in your market, it's about how fast you can adapt these technologies in your organization. And this is the challenge a lot of companies have right now, and also we would like to help you with. So as my colleague Vincent already explained in the past slides, we are able to include 52 data points into our pricing engine. So our pricing engine consists of a plug and play and also drag and drop module to make your own pricing strategy. So we have not only internal data such as the margins, discounts, all the product groups, but we can also add external data such as competitor prices, such as stock values even of your competitors. So we can add a lot of data points which are influencing your pricing process. How does it actually work? So what you see here at the start, that we start actually with deciding, okay, what could be the internal and external data, what can be used to input to SYMSON. We can do that via our API, which we make a connection between your ERP system or your web shop to SYMSON, that we have a good connection between the daily price changes of, for example, your cost prices. Then our AI algorithm, which you can build yourself, decides, okay, what should be the logic to change your prices. So based upon all the variables, you can build your own logic and your own model. And on the other side, we have an export API, which you can have these updated prices, the recommended prices, or the updated prices based upon these variables to send back to your ERP system or to send back to the web shop or any other system you currently use for making your prices visible to your customers. So this is a visualization, a 3D visualization we make to give you a little bit of more insight how these price loops work in an AI tooling such as SYMSON. But it's not only about the technology. We developed a concept which is called hyperlearning, because we believe as a company that the speed of learning could be your new competitive advantage. Especially in the past, we saw things like economies of scale, a strong vision, IP, and also a motivated workforce is the components where you can distinguish yourself upon the competition. But we believe in the current economy, this is not enough. You should also learn as a company, because you see those tech giants like Amazon and Google, they become really competitive because they have a high speed of learning. And we have developed a concept which we call the hyperlearning. And if you go to the next slide, this makes it a little bit more visible. So the hyperlearning concept is also built upon this matrix, and this matrix is developed by MIT professor Paul Schumacher, and he's made this matrix to help companies make superior judgments, which combining human knowledge but also the machine knowledge. And this matrix shows us where companies can excel in their decisions. So we have on the vertical axis the tasks, the uniqueness of the task. And on the other side, we have the horizontal axis, the data availability of each task. And where you see that if there's a high unique task and there's less data available, for example, a creative process or a really intelligent briefing or a complex negotiation between your customer, you see that always the humans or the persons always win because this is very unique. The same goes up for example, Corona or these situations. A machine has never occurred this before, so it needs to adapt into these new situations, and therefore you need the human judgment to make this decision. And there's where it wins for over a computer. And when you have a lot of data and it's a really familiar problem, this is where the computer is always stronger. So you see here iris scanning, you see credit scoring. It's a really familiar task for a computer, and this is where the computer is winning. When you go to pricing is typical a topic where the humans but also the machines are combined. So there is, you see it on the top of the axis. I will ask the moderator to go to the previous slide. And there you see the top of the axis, so the right top, where humans and computers win. So we have here a lot of tasks in pricing, which could be automated by the pricing engine. But we have also situations where a new customer can come in or a new situation happens in the market where you need to have this feedback of you as a pricing expert. And by combining it, you learn as a computer. So the machine learns to make this model even better, but also the pricing manager learns from getting actually the feedback of the system. And this is what we call hyperlearning, to make your organization even smarter and also to adopt multiple learning loops in your organization. And to help you a little bit in making your company a hyperlearning organization, we developed this roadmap where you see on the x-axis the speed of learning, on the y-axis the value. So here is the presentation is the more you learn, the higher the value you get. So currently you are probably somewhere at 1.0, and you can already start implementing our Insights and Learn module, but also our pricing engine, to first learn a lot from your historical data. What could be interesting patterns you see? What could be the drivers you want to include in your pricing process? Which customer is more profitable than the others, and which product is behaving better than the others? That's what you can learn at the Insights and Learn module. Next to that, we have the pricing engine, which could be a great backbone to start with, because the pricing engine offers you the possibility to automate a big part of your process. And in combination with the learnings you get from Insights and Learn, it gives you a great start to go to the next phase of the maturity, to add more drivers to your process. For example, competitor pricing. And here in this phase 3.0, you can add more data, external data, to include in your pricing model. And if you go to pricing 4.0, pricing 4.0, you are able to actually make predictions. So at the past stages, 2.0 and 3.0, you were able to add a lot of data and to look in the past. But here at 4.0, you're able to make predictions, so to look into the future. So you can use our AI algorithm to make predictions and to answer questions like, if I increase for a selected group of products my prices with 5%, what happens with my margin and what happens with my revenue? These kind of smart questions you can ask the system, and the system helps you to give recommendations of optimal prices. Stage 5, that's actually the most mature phase of this roadmap, and this is also the kind of the dot on the horizon we have with a lot of customers. And this is where we help you to genius dynamic pricing. And here it's not only about the technology, because the technology enables you to add uh, a lot of drivers in your pricing algorithm, but it's also here about the organization, that you have the right processes, the right tools in place, but also the right culture, because here you need a kind of a culture of experimentation and also culture of giving feedback to the system to make the algorithm even smarter. So this embraces a culture of experimentation and also about a really good understanding of how the algorithm works. That's why these algorithms should be transparent. And we would like to help you to become a hyperlearning organization and to guide you towards this most mature phase. Our learnings when implementing a price engine. I think the past minutes, the past 40 minutes were a lot of knowledge about what could be the value of the price engine. But if you want to start with it, I think you can also have a lot of questions. Okay, what could be your learnings? Um, One of the learnings we have is start with a good business case. As we already discussed in one of the first slides, the business case could start with, okay, how many time do I spend now to update my prices? And how frequent is it? And what could be the possible time investment or time saving if I start automating my tasks? So that could be a good start when making a business case next to the financial side. How many products do you have, and how many products could be optimized in revenue and margin? Second thing is collect the people with the most analytical skills to kick off the implementation. So starting with a pricing engine also means that you have to start with a good understanding of the process, a good understanding of the data, and a good understanding of, okay, how can this process be automated into a certain price logic, into a certain price algorithm. So to understand how this works, we always advise you to collect the most analytical people, because they know what drivers could be in, and they also can make a translation to the data. So having a good combination between these analytical people and, we call it, the subject matter experts, so the pricing manager or the sales managers, that's a great combination to start with. So all the knowledge, people that have knowledge about this pricing process should be included when kicking off with the implementation. Another learning we have is dream big, start small. Of course, the big business case is in automating all the prices you make as an organization. But when you're introducing new tools, it also helps with deciding, okay, what could be a good scope. It can be a specific country, or can it be a specific part of the assortment, to show that this is already a good business case to also convince other departments they should adopt the pricing engine. Because when introducing new tools, there's always a learning curve, and it's expected that you don't know this tool already beforehand. So when starting with a small group, starting with a small scope of products, and also with a specific department or country, you can learn as an organization, and later in the process you can share these learnings with other departments, so that the learning process goes faster, and not when introducing it as a whole, that the whole organization is dependent on the pricing engine as a start. So the other learning, the fail fast, learn fast, is about if you have any learnings, we call it the way through Rome, was also not built in one day. It's really starting with a data-driven process is really a process. So we cannot expect that's finished in one day. So that's why, especially in terms of data delivery, data importing, it can happen, especially at the beginning, that the data is not the quality you're expected. So that's why you need to have these quick learning loops to see, okay, we give the system give insights in, okay, what is the data quality, and what could be recommendations to increase the level of the data quality, so that we build actually this learning loop together, and that you are learning fast in how to make this price engine and data process more successful in your organization. So these were some of the learnings. Yeah, we come to an end of the webinar. So if you would like to have a personalized demo, you can scan this QR code, and this goes to the QR code of Vincent. He will be your main contact person when having a demo. But you can also go to our webpage, symson.com/demo. And this page, you can leave your details there, and we will contact you very soon to give you a demo about what could be the applications for a price engine into your organization. We're also very curious about how you're currently doing. So yeah, we come now to the last part of the webinar, the questions. So I will take a look to which questions were asked during the webinar. Let me have a quick look. One question is from Thomas. He asked, are the pricing engines compatible with all the ERP systems and all vendor platforms? Thanks for asking this question, Thomas. We have a lot of connections, so we have also several pages on our website where this is described, but we can integrate with several ERP systems, but also with web shops, such as Magento, such as Shopify. We have several integrations, so that we have never occurred an integration that was not possible. So I think that should be possible with any compatible ERP system. Thanks for asking this question. Another question is from Lucas. He asked, I have a web shop of 230 products. Could the price engine be something for me? Yeah, thanks for asking this question, Lucas. This could be, I think it's a great question, and I cannot give the right answer right now because I don't have a detailed overview of your situation, but it depends on a couple of variables we also discussed in this presentation. One could be the time you're currently investing in your pricing process. So how much time are you currently daily on a weekly basis spending on updating your prices? Second is, how many times do you have your price changes, or what is the most desired time of doing your price changes? So this gives a bit of an overview of how much time you can save with a pricing engine, because we can save about 80 to 90% of this time. But next to that, there's also, of course, the financial part. So how much revenue are you currently generating of these total 32 products? And is this investment of a pricing engine, is that already a good investment right now? I don't have any insights right now on your revenue, so I would like to invite you to have a separate meeting where we can make this business case for you. But if this revenue, I think, is below 2 million, then we often see that the business case is probably a little bit too early, and then you have to wait before you have a certain amount of time investment you make on updating the prices, and before you have a certain level of revenue that you can have a high return of investment of a pricing engine. But thanks for asking this question. I don't see any more questions, and I also see that we are pretty running out of time. It's already 10 minutes before 4. So also on behalf of Vincent, I would like to thank you for attending this webinar, and would like to see you in the next webinar. In the meantime, if you have any questions, please ask them on LinkedIn. It's still possible to ask your questions, or you can add me on LinkedIn or scan the QR code, which was visible on the previous slide. For now, thank you. Have a nice day, and thanks for watching.